On the Malaysian agreement now, and a critical factor in all of this is going to be whether the UN signs on to whatever they come up with. I would presume that would be largely the reason why the whole thing has been held up for so long. Right?
Indeed, and in fact a large part of the time was with the agreement sitting with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Geneva, kind of trying to get their levels of comfort up to a sufficient level where they could give sign-off, is my understanding. And that is seen by... There's a really interesting internal dynamic happening within the Labor Party about this discussion, because there are people in the left who have very heavy hearts about the direction their party is taking, and that has been the one thing that's given them some source of comfort, that along with the increase of the refugees who will come, the 4,000 from Malaysia, who've already been through the process of verification. But the fact that the UNHCR is there has given some of those people some measure of comfort, at least, even if they're not particularly overjoyed on the final outcome.
On one thing, you might know that you seem to be expert on this one, Misha, that Australia is going to pay for the education and health of the 800 we're going to send back to Malaysia.
Yep.
Are we going to pay for them to go to Malaysian schools, or are we going to set up our own schools there?
That's not entirely clear.
And is that going to go on like forever?
Well, at the moment, what happens is that effectively aid agencies or the UNHCR operate sort of shadow schools, charity schools, basically, because these children aren't able to go to the public schools in Malaysia because they're not officially recognised as being there.
So if we do, is it really any different to aid? To a normal aid program?
It's another form of aid. But it will be interesting just what the details are of what will go on in Malaysia, because there is this big, as Misha calls them, a shadow population in Malaysia, mainly in and around Kuala Lumpur, of asylum seekers who have basically no rights and are subjected to some pretty horrible treatment by a volunteer immigration police force who wander around, and there have been cases of abuse and violence against people. How this is all going to fit, and how any special rights given to these people spills over into the broader asylum seeker population in Malaysia, it's going to be quite fascinating. The details are going to be really fascinating. The politics of it, of course, depend on only one thing, and that is that it works and it stops the boats.
And that is the key to this whole thing. Labor people are desperate to stop the boats. They, a lot of them, senior figures in the government, think that this has been the issue that's really been killing them. The carbon tax has been the issue more front of mind, obviously, and particularly in recent weeks. But they trace the start of the decline of their fortunes to that 3-month period at the end of 2009.
The Oceanic Viking.
The Oceanic Viking happened, and there were a larger spike in boat arrivals growing, and it was really masked in the polls because there was so much disarray within the Liberal Party at the time over the emissions trading scheme and the ultimate toppling of Malcolm Turnbull.
I think the carbon tax, though, has, has been a big factor as well. The Fairfax poll was the worst result in 40 years, and only it doesn't go back any further than that because the poll doesn't go back any further than that. So the sales pitch is obviously not going very well. Here's Paul Howes on that aspect of it.
Well, look, it hasn't been perfect, has it? I mean, you know, Blind Freddie can tell you that. But that's their job. They'll work it out. Of course she'll survive. She'll be the leader of the Labor Party tomorrow, and she'll be the leader of the Labor Party at the next federal election. I've already bet my house on it.
I don't know what he quite means by that, but...
They always say that until they're not.
And it's interesting, he says he didn't say he'd had a bet on who was going to win that election, did he?
No, and Tony Windsor thinks that now that Labor will probably lose, but Barnaby Joyce doesn't expect any dramatic developments in the near future, at least. Here's Barnaby Joyce.
Just one Labor lower house member needs to cross the floor, or an independent, but as we know, they're ridiculous. One's over in Spain at the moment, and the other one's hiding up a log.
Tony Windsor's in Spain. I presume he's saying Rob Oakeshott is hiding up a log. But
no love lost.